Well, thank you so much for being here today. It feels amazing to all be back in one place again. I think all of you I first met as Institute specialists, but over the years you've each been thought partners, people to challenge my thinking, people I can call on when I need a second opinion or when a generalization's not quite right and I just need someone to help me with it. So, professionally I have respected the connection that we've all had, and it's also wonderful to be back together as friends. So, all right, today I really wanted to start with you, Rafael, and ask you, in your new role as a pedagogical leader at a brand new school, how have your beliefs about concept-based learning influenced your approach to curriculum design?
I think the most important part of the decision-making process had to do with the identity that I wanted to create and how I wanted to differentiate the school from other schools in Brussels and possibly even in the region. And because of my journey in concept-based curriculum and instruction, I believe that was the right choice. What made me believe that was the right choice was the amount of support that I had around me. I remember that when I started my journey as an international educator, what was the most complicated thing for me was to have that kind of support, informed support, to help me grow. So that was a big part of it. And then the belief part of it, having myself being part of the process of a journey of becoming trained, helped me realize that if that change had been impactful on me, I could just imagine the impact that it would have on other educators. So that's where all the energy emerged from. And having all the resources that CBCI has produced now also made me feel that it was the right choice, because I would not be walking on shaky grounds. And now it was all a matter of finding the people that believed in it, that had the same aspiration, and that believed in this project. And so far it's been a very interesting journey. Yeah,
what an incredible opportunity to be doing the hiring with those beliefs in mind and to bring people in.
Yeah, it's really like planting the seeds and informing people, like, this is where we are, this is where we want to go, these are the tools that we have, these are the beliefs that we have, this is what we believe in, this is what we do not believe in. It's full transparency from the beginning. And that's already in a matter of 7 months really transformed the way that I approach working as a team transparently.
Yeah, that's incredible. And so what sort of impact are you starting to see on teachers and on students as a result of that?
Happiness. Happiness. I think I was telling Jess, another colleague of ours, as you know, last night that one of the parents in one of the student-led conferences said to his child, "This school is truly my gift to you." Oh. So for me, hearing that kind of feedback made me realize that not only was it a good choice for me, selfishly speaking, as an educator, as the leader of the project, but for the community. Another thing that I observe on a daily basis is how students don't want to leave school. Wow. So we struggle to get them on the buses, You would see Yuri running around all the time, get on your bus, get on your bus. So the fact that children arrive with enthusiasm and ready to engage, it's great. And as for the teachers, I think it just reignited this desire for remaining learners and continuing to learn. So it's been really good in every sense. Well, I believe that to some extent you have experienced that, Nancy, when you started doing CBCI from scratch in Singapore.
Yeah, and I really love how you've talked about that joy in education, and also when you were talking about the beliefs, that really comes back to purpose. And lifting that, I think that's really a starting point in all of this, is going back to the school's vision and mission. And understanding if we are trying to educate for global citizens or whatever that mission is driving us forward with, why we get up every day and come to school, that really it has to begin there, and concept-based is a way that we can really go out into the world and make it a better place. So that really resonated with me as you were speaking. Just in my personal journey, one of the things I think is really starting with that written curriculum and how we might do that within our international school settings. I think this is a real opportunity for us to think about curriculum and how to implement that across an entire learning program, but it's also a huge challenge. But it really does begin with that mission and purpose and everybody working together towards that. So just with curriculum itself, I think that's a really lofty term, and what do we mean by curriculum? I think that's a starting point for any educational discussion, because of course we have curriculum, we have assessment, we have pedagogy, and then within curriculum we have our written, taught, and assessed curriculum. So really when we talk about curriculum design, I'm going to focus first on that written curriculum. So how do we actually start to think about our schools in this opportunity to have a written curriculum that truly is concept-based? So within my experiences of doing this, I know it takes time because it's highly complex. Our schools are complex and we're educating for a world of complexity. So we have to be responsive in setting out our project planning within our written curriculum. And what I have seen over 2, 3, in some of my educational settings, a 6-year process in doing this, is that we're just constantly responding. You have a framework in place, but you're constantly responding to the educators and the students within your system in developing it. And through that written curriculum, it's not just creating intended learning goals or standards or whatever you call it within your school setting, but it's how we're lifting our thinking as educators in the building. Once you get onto concept-based, you can't turn it off. Yeah. And I don't know, Nyssa, have you found that?
Yeah, I was actually going to just pick up on that, because that's one of the things that I love most about, regardless of the curriculum design model of the school that I'm working with, that is the thing that I find concept-based is an incredible tool for, is no matter how we're approaching curriculum, concept-based really has bridges that help folks get to where they've always wanted to. Get to the reason they went into teaching, get to what it is they really want kids to take with them. And I think that in addition to that written curriculum, it's like there's an energy underneath the discussions that happen because of a concept-based approach that make that written curriculum, what gets documented, what we really want, what we've always wanted, but we haven't exactly known how to write down. And it's when that energy comes underneath that all of a sudden teachers buy into a curriculum design process in a way that may have felt pedantic, forced, didn't apply to them. You're going to make me write it down, but it isn't going to serve me or my kids. It changes. It's like the approach actually changes the process, the thinking, and therefore what gets written down. And that's what gives me energy, is to watch educators come alive through the process.
There's two things that both of you have mentioned that I believe are extremely important. This idea of unity, of working as one community, and then purpose. I think that the four of us understand what it means to develop a culture with a purpose, with a common language that is unified from the beginning to the end. A community that does not break as children move from one stage to the other. And for me, that's also part of the transformational aspect of concept-based, the fact that it's one common language, it's one common model, and the only thing that we have to do is follow the child, or follow the learner in this case, because we are the learners also developing our thinking, expanding our thinking as things evolve.
And because it's one common model, I think it really helps with that articulated journey through, or that bridge through elementary into middle school, because all too often we see that planning happening and I'll be like, oh, well, you're teaching a migration unit, but I know elementary are also teaching migration. What are their understandings? And we'll go, oh, well, we don't know. But as soon as we can start to share understandings, it gives us so much more insight into the unit than just there's a unit on whatever topic. We can actually go, these units are too similar, or there's not enough scaffolding to jump from here to here. And it gives this intentional documented curriculum something that can become a meaningful document for that learning journey of the student. So there is one thing you mentioned earlier that I want to revisit, Nancy. You talked about this as being about a 6-year journey, sometimes even more. And that's something that really resonated with me. I've worked with schools before where somebody on high has decided that there's no written curriculum and it all needs to be documented by the end of this year, which is so unrealistic. And I think we need to acknowledge that journey, that this is a journey, and it's going to take that kind of time in order to be able to just get the written curriculum in place. And then we also need time for implementation.
Yeah, and I think that really comes back to, are you a transactional school or are you a transformative school? And the transformative, and Nyssa, just picking up on something you talked about, it's not just about the documentation, which of course we need documentation, but it's those rich conversations and dialogue that we're having along the way. So it's not just documenting the curriculum, but we're also learning. It's every time we're in a meeting, it's our own professional learning. And just honoring the teachers that we all have interactions with. Teachers think conceptually. They've been doing this for a long time. Really where I see my role is in facilitating those conversations to really help teachers get out of their brains and starting to document what they know so well. And then formulating that in a concept-based way within our curriculum design. And I think another starting point, we talked about our purpose, we talked about the vision and the mission of the school, but really a starting point for me in documenting written curriculum is to have a very clear set of curriculum design principles that has been developed with key stakeholders in the school, so that you have a model running all the way from your early learners right through the school.
Which comes back to that consistency that Rafael was talking about earlier.
And on that note of consistency, Rachel, just the fact that we have one model that can be accessed and read and interpreted in the same way by everyone is also very powerful. And that makes me think about the written curriculum as a piece that responds not only to the objectives that we have academically and pedagogically, but also to the traditions of the school, the local requirements, those events that schools value, those engagements that we bring parents to participate in. I think that's also a part of the curriculum that concept-based empowers very beautifully.
I also want to pick up on something that you were saying, Nyssa. You talked about the excitement that comes from this finally makes sense. This planning is purposeful, and that it articulates the intent of the learning. Because for so many years, in schools that I've been at anyway, planning was box ticking, and introducing concept-based actually got teachers excited about planning again. And teachers stopped bringing their marking to meetings, and were actually, you can see the difference in people's mood and energy in planning meetings when they're kind of starting to lean into the conversations and they're excited about actually getting out a planner and documenting understandings. And it's that documentation of conceptual understandings that gives teachers so much clarity and intent in terms of this is what this unit's about. Or it even gives you a place to go, we planned these understandings, but we didn't get to these two. So what does that mean? Does that mean we need to change some of the other things, or actually are we okay to let go of those two? It's not necessary for our standards, but it gives that talking of that common language to actually have those conversations.
Yeah, I think one of the things I run into a lot working mostly with arts educators, and certainly folks who have time limited with students, is that it's hard for us, those who have limited time with students, because we value the world and we have to figure out how to reduce what we teach students into such a small amount of time. And what happens, one of the ways we compensate for that is we get on a hamster wheel, because we try to do as much of everything all the time. And what that ends up being for arts teachers is a lot of skills. And those are really, really wonderful things, but the gift of concept-based is to be able, is to give teachers the time and the space and the vision to step back and say, okay, so why does that matter? And when we do that, all of a sudden the why this matters to students, why this matters to me, it's like our energy and our heart can re-engage with what we're doing in a way that I've had people say to me, it just feels like they're at the beginning of their teaching career again. Like they feel like they've had this new start because the way they approach what they're doing is no longer just trying to tick a bunch of boxes, even in the classroom, to assess the skills within the standards, to get everything done, to make sure they have the assessments for their report card, but to say, why is it that we're doing this? How do we want students to interact with this art form or with whatever discipline? And it brings an entire new perspective and life to the way that teachers see their classrooms. And especially at a time, we've come up through a really, really difficult time as teachers. We have to honor that, right? People are tired. So to be able to step back and say, hey, this is a possibility. And let's talk with you about what the possibilities are. It changes the energy.
Yes.
You made me think of something that we language teachers feel in our classrooms all the time. The kind of dialogue that we have with students, very age appropriate and language level appropriate. And one of the things that I've noticed about concept-based is that it's allowed us to rediscover how to be intellectually engaged. And have conversations with people that think at the same level that we think and that contribute to the same extent that we want to contribute. And that's also been very revitalizing.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Nyssa, you've been working as an educational consultant for many years now, as have you, Rafael. How can schools leverage educational consultants in curriculum redesign process?
I think the schools where we've been able to travel the furthest and we've been able to help teachers do the most, that therefore then impacts what their students are learning, have been curriculum directors, learning leaders, coaches who have really invited me in to their mission and vision, to what you were talking about earlier, and saying, hey, this is what we value. This is this is the big picture of our school. This is the approach that we take, whatever curriculum design approach that is. And we want you to meet us. We want you to bring your expertise. We want you to bring your experience. We want you to bring your knowledge of what other schools are doing and help us figure out what's authentic to us. So it's this very much sort of meeting in the middle that provides a very organic, synergistic process that therefore gets that school exactly what that school needs. So there's no cookie cutter. It's like they bring their best, I bring my best, and then we create this really rich environment for teachers to have these meaningful conversations we're talking about, which really empowers them, which therefore ripples out to their students. So that's where I see the most energy and impact and really joy around the whole process, and in the end the most results on their end as well.
And I know in the past you've talked about it being a real partnership with schools.
Absolutely.
And you often work in ways where you'll revisit that school for an extended, sometimes years. You'll keep going back and working with that team to develop that. How have you found that process, Rafael, as a consultant going in?
I think the first time that I had an invitation that implied a long-term partnership, the first feeling that I had is that my voice was valued, that the contribution that they needed me to make was very concrete, very clear. And I appreciated that because I knew what was expected from me, and I knew my limitations, and I knew my strengths. So I was in a position to say yes or no, and I felt capable of doing it because they laid out where they wanted to go very well. I also appreciated how they welcomed me to understand their context, to understand what they had done before and what had worked and what had not worked. And again, why they decided to make this move and go in this direction. And so that represented automatically a challenge for me to become empathetic with them, to be able to arrive there and say, okay, so here's my voice, here are my tools, let's play together and let's talk. And it's become a journey of developing language that we carry forward, language with intention and experience.
Beautiful. And Nancy, on the car on the way here, you were talking about this changing model of professional learning, about rethinking the way that we provide professional learning within schools to really maximize and actually get some kind of transformation out of that professional learning, whatever that learning is, that it's not just almost that kind of random sign up for workshops model where each teacher may or may not get something from it, but a much more intentional approach
Yeah, I sometimes in my experience I call this moving from the popcorn approach and really strategically leading that forward within schools. So that again, vision, purpose built into your strategic plan, and also then project planning within schools. So you always have your professional learning running alongside this. So one thing I like to do, and I was so excited by both of you talking about that because you're both consultants, is I like to spend time with a consultant before they even come to the school. So we're very clear. Really, I see my role as setting that consultant up for success, understanding our context, our culture within the school, and knowing specifically what we're working on when you get there. And then obviously transferring that into our teaching body of what will they expect and how does this look? So it's not just a one-off workshop, it's how are we moving forward over the next couple of years with the aim or the goal of what we're trying to achieve. So I just think that's really important for school leaders that are in learning positions.
But with that in mind, the idea of this kind of popcorn approach is such a great analogy. One of the things that I have loved working with schools is sometimes they will start with some of the school leaders and a few teachers doing a workshop, and then they'll put 20 more teachers through a workshop. So we don't want the pendulum to swing to we're all doing this together straight away, ready or not, here we go, we're all doing this professional learning. The things that I have found most powerful are when the early implementers can get on board first, and you can get that kind of experience under your belt. They can try it in the context that works. And so when you bring the next group on board, there's already some within the school who were excited about it, who can also provide leadership. And that might be other classroom teachers, but who can say, you know, yes, this works, come in and watch what's happening in my classroom.
Yeah, and I think that's really, I think it comes back to differentiation of what you're doing with professional learning within your schools, ensuring that you're stretching and supporting those that want to go with it, bringing them together in the communities of learning, and also not every area of the school or every team has the same needs. Yes. So it's really, we're all working towards this common goal, but we're going to get there in different ways, perhaps. Just thinking about the professional learning and thinking about it through projects. Some are long-term, shorter term, but really creating priorities. And what really resonates me is, I believe Dylan William used this quote, is sometimes you just have to stop doing some good things to do a few good things even better. So yeah, when you think about differentiation, I'm currently on a staff that I have incredible educators that I'm working with. We have so many good things going on at the school, but we can't do everything all at once. So it's always that struggle of being able to support, but being very clear on these are the things that we're working on strategically as an entire school at the moment.
Yeah, which goes back to your vision and mission. Yes. These are the things we're working on. This is what we believe about education. Yeah, that's actually one of the things that I'm really excited about in the way that, you know, we've worked together as consultants. Both of you were in the same school earlier this year. We, Professional Learning, sent 5 different specialist educators who were all running a consistent message, but with their own different specialist backgrounds, which I think is such an exciting approach to say, yes, we're all doing concept-based, but you're going to learn that from a specialist of your discipline, which was really, I think, fantastic.
I think it lowers the resistance to change. When we think about, let's face it, let's be honest, as a teacher, I saw lots of things come and go. I understand people's resistance. I get it. I don't judge it. It makes so much sense. I honor it to my core. And if we want to help people with that transformation, we need people who are able to translate, right? And the sooner somebody can say, okay, but what does that look like in theater? And I can say, well, what do you value? What's important to you? And together we can come to an understanding in that moment of how that matters in my classroom. All of the sudden it's like, Okay, I can see that. As opposed to closing the meeting, going 3 more weeks or a month until the next meeting with somebody saying, that doesn't apply to me.
Yes.
It makes such a huge difference. It's like we can all of a sudden, we can partner with people differently because we understand what it looks like in classrooms. And teachers deserve to know what it looks like in classrooms. That's what it's about, what it looks like in classrooms.
It's examples that we bring,
Yes.
and then how the examples are so personal,
Yes.
and then not personal, I mean possibly personal to us because we created them, or personal because of the author, the creator of that idea. So we bring these subject-specific ideas, and automatically that gives a sense of possibility,
Exactly.
and that erases all the fear and all the tension of how will I do it.
Yes.
Is there even an example, an idea that I could use to understand what it may look like?
Yeah.
Yes, and I want to pitch on something that you mentioned, Nancy, about the differentiation of the process and the purpose. Another thing that I have noticed with concept-based curriculum and instruction is the fact that once we are on a journey as an institution, because of everyone that is part of the journey, we leave traces. So every new member of the community has a point of start. You know, if we have the examples, we have the conversations, we have the written documents, so we know exactly what help to provide, what entry point to welcome people through. Not everybody is necessarily a beginner, and how respectful, you know, professionally speaking, of an institution to say, okay, Rachel, you know, I know that you've done this, and this, and I believe that this is where you are. Why don't you start your journey here, and then these two people can help you. I mean, I think that speaks volumes of how we understand the organs, the heart of the pedagogy that we were living in the schools.
Oh, I love that. That's, I think, probably a beautiful place to wrap this up in terms of honouring all educators' learning journey to that point and being able to welcome more people into this community at wherever they're at to be implementing this approach in their classrooms and ultimately making a difference. Going back to what you said right at the beginning, bringing that happiness back into learning and that joy back into learning for students and, as you're saying, for teachers. To say, this is purposeful, this is meaningful. I'm excited about this. So thank you all for joining me today. It's so beautiful to be able to connect with you all again.
It's great to be here in person.
It's great to see you all again.
Nice to have the conversations in real life.
No, well, I think we should dance.
I think we dance.
Let's have a dance. Ready? Here we go.
Ready?
Ready? Wait, I gotta sit my pocket first.
Well, you know, she mentioned the word happy, so let's just pretend that the song happy is in the background.
Because I'm happy that's long if you know.
Dylan Williams.
Because